The opinions expressed on this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Cable 14, its sponsors, or its shareholders, Cogeco Cable, Shaw Cable, and Source Cable Limited.
And welcome to Council Edition for Wednesday, November the 7th. I'm Doug Farraway. On today's show, the latest on E. coli discharges into the Red Hill, more discussion about a casino for downtown, and a major threat to the green canopy in Stony Creek. Our guest is Ward 10 Councillor Maria Pearson, and it's good to have you back.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now,
Always a pleasure.
How late did you manage to stay up last night? Because I'm a political junkie, and I was up watching an Obama majority, basically. He got there, and he did it in pretty good style. What about you?
Absolutely. I stayed up till about 12:30, quarter to 1. I really wanted to hear his speech, and unfortunately, knowing I had to be here today and other committee commitments today, I thought I better get my beauty sleep.
Can you imagine running for political office in the United States?
I don't know how they do it, and just watching, on the news every day just to see their composure, and it's just like they're not frazzled at all, and they just keep going. You wonder, where are they getting their batteries?
Yeah, well, and that's part of it. And I look at the advertising campaigns. We're pretty civil, I think, in Canada. I mean, we have gotten a little nastier, American style politicking in this country. We do have sign wars, but watching some of the stuff that was coming out of the Buffalo Upper New York State senatorial race, that was just mean and nasty. And they spent a ton of dough doing it.
Well, I heard that Romney was over $1 billion at the campaign. $1 billion. How many people could that have helped?
Yeah,
wow.
Good point. Today, you did have to get your beauty sleep. You did have to get up for General Issues Committee. And as you said,
an awards presentation at Orchard Park first thing this morning.
Oh, goodness. And GIC, very long agenda, and one of the issues on GIC, and it's been a recurring theme on this program, again, is the downsizing of services, the discretionary services, most importantly from the province to the city of Hamilton. And honestly, you guys have, making a decision like you did last week at Emergency Services, debating it today. The letters to the editor in The Spectator and other forums praising council. It's rare that council gets praised, but some of the words that have been used, courageous, shows leadership by taking on that downsizing to make sure the people who need things the most will have them. That's a gutsy decision.
Young lady, if I'm not mistaken, if I know who it is, was there today also at GIC. And I attended the Emergency and Community Services Committee last week. Not being a committee member, I really wanted to get, a really good feel and understanding. I mean, we all know what the issues are, but just to get a feel and understanding of, what the implications of these further cuts mean. And, I have to say I support wholeheartedly what we're trying to do moving forward. Shame on the province for what they've done to communities all across Ontario. And I have to say that my comments today, and I supported the motion that came before us, which is a motion to put in another $3.4 million that will come out of reserves right now to provide extension of services and needs for another 6 months. That's all it's going to take us forward with. And but I have to say, it was the presenters there today, the public, the needy. You know what? I'm so glad they're coming out. And yes, they're praising us, but rightfully I want to praise them back, because you know what? I'm so glad that they're backing us up. It's so hard to be one-sided at the council table when you really don't have faces to the issue. And when you know that they're just as passionate, they're right in line with us, it's a great feeling moving forward.
And it's $30. I don't mind dipping into my wallet for $30 next year on the tax bill to cover these discretionary things. So,
well, I don't think
kudos to council on this one.
Well, thank you. And I think that it's not just the $30. We have to understand it's like the scales. You know, you can take from one side, and $30 to you and me may not be an issue, but you know, I have an aging population, and a number of other councillors will say the same thing. You know what, are we taking from one that creates problems on the other side? I'll be honest, I've knocked on the doors. I've had the seniors have said to me, Maria, either I pay for my prescriptions or I pay my taxes. And that scares me. That really scares me.
And it's at that point, and it's
Yes.
those folks who are on fixed incomes that may, for the very first time, end up at a food bank.
Exactly.
Let's talk about something else that was making the news this week, and there's been a watchdog group, I believe, around since 2002 that monitors the water that comes through our sewer system in the Red Hill Valley.
Yeah.
And there were some scary reports about E. coli in several of the outtakes or the pipes going into the Red Hill and eventually making it to the harbor if they are not held in that massive tank that we have spent a lot of money on.
2 tanks.
2 tanks. Scary kinds of things, and it's an issue that I've seen you guys debate in committee and at council meetings, and the number of faulty hookups, we'll be generous and say faulty, and there are definitely illegal hookups all across the city. And I know, and I saw you discussing it, this happens in Stony Creek. You have some flooding, water issues, et cetera, et cetera. Well, what are we going to do about these illegal hookups? What is the city attempting to do at this point?
Well, we're still working on, they're doing the investigation that they are, I'm just reading the report again today, they're figuring it's going to be another 2 years, just trying to find the faulty or illegal cross connects. I find it very surprising, though, that these cross connects are storm sewers into the sanitaries, because normally, I mean, I know in my ward, and you know, we do urbanization, the storm sewers are a lot deeper, or no, the sanitaries are a lot deeper than the storms. Whether contractors are going in, and because it's cheaper to dig in a little bit less, is maybe why this has happened. But yeah, the illegal and improper connections, that all has to be investigated. It's a long process, and it is a lot of work, and it will be costly. So they're doing all that investigation, is my understanding, and they will be bringing a report forward to see how we can address this. Because it means cutting into the roads, it means a lot of pipe work,
And we have some huge infrastructure projects.
$200 million shortfall right now in infrastructure.
And a lot of them are about cleaning up the harbor. And there are major, major decisions that are still to come, not for this show today.
No. Okay. I didn't study those numbers, so thank you.
Exactly. Look, you've been somewhat critical of the process that has gone on regarding Enbridge and the Line 9. And a lot of people are now waking up to what that issue is in Flamborough, basically an application to reverse the flow. And now it's also an application, I believe I've read that it's an application now to bring tar sands, bitumen,
yes.
bringing it from the west to the east and reversing the flow. And it's becoming a major issue. And you had some pointed concerns, I thought. You were quoted in several articles, concerns that average citizens were coming before GIC and making known their thoughts about this, but Enbridge was not to be found, and in fact Enbridge was quietly lobbying politicians, some of your peers, behind closed doors, which raises a whole bunch of issues.
Absolutely, and ironically today at GIC, which I had to leave, is still ongoing now, there is a letter from an Enbridge representative requesting to make presentation at a future meeting. But my biggest concern was they knew that this item was being dealt with back in September, and no one was there. And I mean, it's very hard to sit at that side of the table. We have questions. Staff can't answer those questions. It would have been an Enbridge representative that should have answered them. And you know what? It's only created more questions and concerns, because if you don't get the information you need, things start getting twisted. I don't know whether their intention now is, because I'm hearing different stories of whether it's going to be tar sands coming through, the bitumen, whatever it's going to be. The reversal we knew, but I don't know for a fact what their next proposal is going to be. And I am very, very concerned with going online. As I was sitting in the council chambers when all the residents were making presentation and reading about what was happening in the States and similar situation, and the problem with the faultiness and the age of the pipeline. And we have the exact same situation here. You're going through wetlands. You're going through an area in our city that has well systems that can jeopardize the water to hundreds of thousands of residents, livestock, farmland. It's a big issue.
Absolutely.
It's a huge issue.
There was also some concern, I believe, expressed by you, certainly by the group Catch, that these kinds of closed-door meetings were actually taking place. And that right now the Accountability and Transparency Committee seems to have just gone to sleep on a shelf somewhere collecting dust. What's going on?
Well, I'm not sure. Accountability and Transparency Committee does sit at the call of the chair. They have not had a meeting in the last little while. But I don't know that the Accountability and Transparency Committee would really have any control or say over me having a meeting with someone, and that's basically what it comes down to. I mean, Enbridge is meeting with the councillors of the ward where they're proposing to have the works go on. So I don't know that that would cover it, and that I can go back and look at the policy of what that committee is supposed to do. But the whole issue is not so much the meeting with the councillors as having the information and report or whatever brought to us.
Yeah. Getting Enbridge in front of council so those questions can be asked. Another interesting item this week, and I'm sure as a councillor you get these kinds of phone calls all the time, where people are wondering, well, what is that construction that's there? Why is there no work going on but the pylons have a lane blocked off? And Councillor Ferguson, I think, had a really good point over the last few days talking about what's going on at King and Hess. It's blocked off. The left lane is blocked off. That is a very busy street. It's now constricted. There is other construction actually going on. Nothing appears to be going on there, and it's been there for so long. And the same happens at the corner of Dundurn and Aberdeen. It took for the longest time for that building to finally rise there. And then we find out in the Spectator, what kind of rules are there? What kind of regulations are there? What kind of power does the city staff have once they agree to a request to block a lane off? Should there not be a timetable? I don't know. What are you guys talking about? Because this is a pain right through it's right through all wards.
And I have to say, I drove that stretch at Hess and King for almost a year now, pretty well daily. So I know exactly what you're talking about. And I think though there was an issue initially, and that's why it was blocked off, is because the bricks were falling off the building, and there was a danger to the pedestrian traffic and to vehicular traffic. So, but I think we have to cautiously let staff come back with a report and say, how can we deal with this? I'd want to be careful in saying a timeline. I mean, it'd be no different than we don't put timelines on somebody building a house,
right?
Unless they're tearing down an existing property, and then they have so much time in which to put it back up, put a new one up. But we don't generally, under the building permits, issue a timeline. And I'm going to say there's probably good reason for that. I mean, there's all kinds of things that come in that factor in when you're doing construction. I mean, you could come into soil conditions that may not, that you may have to do something different as far as construction. You know, there's all kinds of issues of materials, of especially this particular one at Hess. I'm sure whether or not they were going to take the existing structure completely down, it looks like, because they're working on it now, because I've just went by again, that they are trying to shore up some walls and whatever. So I think we have to be cautious. I don't want to turn development away either, especially when it's infill like this particular situation.
And we don't know if they're going to come across environmental issues or even heritage issues, artifacts, etc. That's going to stop any kind of project and put a delay on, and once the barricades are up on the road, they can't necessarily go away, especially that building with a facade that
and you know, and everything costs money, and people can say, well, so what? The developers have money. Well, you know what? They only have so much. And, you know, if they spend it all there, does that give them an opportunity to spend elsewhere after also? I mean, I'm not saying I'm, you know, supportive or pro 100% development, but I do support development. And I think we have to have a fair balance on trying to assist for the greater good of all the community.
Earlier this year, you and I chatted about the rogue charity boxes.
Oh, yes.
One of your pet projects, I was going to say peeves, but that would be little. And everybody knows about these. We see them usually in malls, and usually the charity's name is right there, and the really good ones have the charitable number right there so that we know it's legit. We also know that there are people in the city, and just about anywhere, who will abuse whether it's a proper organization or not. They'll just drop off junk instead of good stuff that's reusable. And in fact, some people are just so callous that they'll pile garbage there. Well, those charities are responsible for keeping that clean. City ends up doing a lot of that. But what has been happening is these rogue, not charities at all, just companies making us believe that they're charities. Take us back in time, because you brought this up in the spring, and it's come up again in the fall.
Exactly.
Walk us through.
I raised this in the spring because all of a sudden, I'm driving my son to work, I'm driving through the ward, and you know, within a matter of days, I've got blue boxes, like large blue charity boxes, popping up all through the ward like mushrooms. And I'm like, and I'm looking at, okay, that one's on city property, and that one's on city property, that one's on private property, no identification, nothing. So I went to staff saying, what are we doing here? I mean, number one, get them off city property, because they were in road allowances that created visibility problems. This is a hazard, this is a danger, and we could be liable. So it started the process of bringing a motion forward to have staff investigate. I didn't want to go as far as saying we needed to license, but I think we needed controls. And you know, the companies have stepped up to the plate and said, okay, hang on a second, put rules in place and we'll follow them. And they're kind of monitoring themselves right now. I was encouraged to say, like, let's just process right now as an education program, an education process for the public, for the property owners, and for the industry. And I think that's what's important, because first and foremost, it's not just a matter of these charity bins. People have to understand, as you just mentioned, Doug, that you know, the city has to go in and clean up. Remember that if this isn't on city property and it's private property, the property owner will be billed. And I don't think a lot of property owners knew that out there. I had one particular incident where the bin was put on private property, and I knew the owner. And I called the owner and I said, are you aware of this bin on your property? He said, yes, I am. I don't know who they are. I didn't give them permission. I said, are you aware that debris has been dumped outside of the bin and you're responsible to clean it up? He said, no, I wasn't aware of that. I said, well, you will be. If an order is issued, you will have to pay. It's $245 just for an order to be issued. And that's slapped right on the property owner's taxes. And then after that, if the city has to come out and have a contractor go in and clean it, it is not cheap. So these were the issues that I wanted to have addressed. You know, I can drive all around the ward. I know basically where all the bins are. And I watch them, and you see the debris and you go, okay, hang on a second. They have cleaned up tremendously. And you're right. Now, I think pretty well every one of them I've seen now has a 1-800 number, has a name, very large, bold. And you know what? I'm glad. I'm glad it didn't have to come to a point of licensing, because that just takes us away from the charities, but that we can have a self-monitoring system amongst their own industry itself, and the public understands.
I think the interesting part of it as well is an enterprising reporter, and your name was in that story, obviously, but an enterprising reporter basically traced where these goods, the clothing, was going. It was not going to charity at all. It was going to be refurbished and then sold for profit.
Correct.
And that just brings a bad name to all charities. Kind of get smeared with that kind of fraudulent behavior is basically what it is.
And it's a multi-million-dollar business, and not all of them are like that. Please don't anybody assume that I'm saying it's all of them, because it's not. And you know, whether it's sold in Value Village or wherever, yes, there is revenue generated, but that's to go back into the pot and help the charities that they promote. So I mean, it's not all of them, and that's why I wanted to be careful that we didn't license at this time, so that we can at least afford them an opportunity of working together and working with the city.
I got to get your personal opinion, if you'll give it today, on the casino issue. And
sure.
I know, and it was like pulling teeth with Sam Marullo when he was in that chair. He was not going to give an inch. And so everybody, I think, is now up to snuff. The fact that City Council basically unanimously supports Flamborough first.
Absolutely.
My question to all of you has been, I think, fairly consistent, that do we not need to have a plan B? We don't know for sure that the lease is going to get done in Flamborough. We don't know for sure that the OLG will want to do Flamborough, since they have stated they want to be where the people are.
Well, but there's also constraints at Flamborough for them.
Exactly.
I think right now there's about 800 slot machines in Flamborough, and that's it. They would love to have the gaming tables. They would love to expand the slots, and they can't. I think my understanding in Flamborough is because of the sewage system. They can't go beyond the capacity that there is there now. So that's one of the dilemmas as far as OLG. But yes, I certainly 100% support if we can leave things the way they are. It's been working. Hamilton generates approximately $4.5 million a year revenue from the slots, and since 2000 it's 55 million. Exactly. And that's, somebody asked me, well, you can't possibly support. I have to. I mean, social service today, we just committed $3.4 million. It's out of reserves, but those reserves are dwindling. We need to have revenue sources, and we may not all like what some of those resources are, but the other side of that, as far as the casino, and I'm saying it very honestly, an argument a couple of times, or a couple of residents have brought arguments. Well, you're creating social issues. You're creating family issues, and you're only going to be paying for that. We're not stopping it now, because even if we don't have it here, they'll go into another community. Flamborough has a bus that picks residents up right in front of Terminal Towers. In Stony Creek, at the I can't remember just off of the Lake Avenue there's a bus that picks residents to go to the casino at Niagara. So you're not going to stop the issues. But do we say shut the door on the revenue and jobs?
Thank you for that. Couple of issues in Ward 10. I wanted to get a quick update because I know you're very concerned about the Emerald Ash Borer, so I want you to chat about that. You've got construction going on, but a very quick update, because I saw a picture of you up on a big honking piece of machinery in August, and the Gateway Ice Center was being built.
And they were afraid I was going to turn the key on that.
I don't know why they'd be afraid. So is it up? Is it operating? They had a target date?
It's not operating.
Okay.
It's up, and they're moving along very well. Last update I received is a little while ago. They were hoping for the end of October. I'm thinking they're going to be sometime November, beginning of December. That is fully private enterprise. I'm so thrilled. It's the Gateway Ice Center, $25 million private
South Service Road and
South Service Road and Fruitland Road.
Okay.
And it's 3 pads. One's an official size rink with seating. I think it's about 2,500 seats, and then 2 additional. And actually, their bookings have been phenomenal. They're already looking at a 4th pad. So I'm absolutely thrilled.
Will the
local companies.
team be moving in there?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I have no idea at this time. So.
I had to ask the sports question.
You did. But no, I'm really thrilled. I think it's ideal. I mean, the location for the private enterprise was key, because it's within 20-30 minutes of pretty well all the metropolitan areas around us. So I think it's great going forward. It'll meet a need that the city has had with regards to ice time, and it's not just for hockey. It's girls figure skating, citizen use, private use, whatever. So it's a great opportunity that I have. I mean, I'm pretty well having a sports complex area in Stony Creek, because just to the west of it is the Players Paradise, which opened about 2-3 years ago now.
Yes.
And that's also private enterprise.
I noticed that the other day, visible from the QEW.
Absolutely.
So we won't need a sports entertainment complex downtown. You've got it.
I've got it covered.
In Stony Creek. I know you want to talk about the Emerald Ash Borer, and people are going, what the heck is that? It's a bug. Okay,
it's a little
bug,
tiny green bug that does a lot of damage.
Exactly. It's a destructive little son of a gun. And Stony Creek is...
It came in from Asia, just like many other things that we've gotten over the years.
And Stony Creek is a target, is in trouble, and I believe I've read a quote where you have said, we've got to throw more resources to battle this thing. We've got about 2 minutes left, so talk about that ash borer and the threat.
The threat I have in Stony Creek, Ward 10 has the highest number of ash trees than any other ward in the city of Hamilton. I'm 19.1% ash and city road allowance. It doesn't include cemeteries, it doesn't include the parks, it doesn't include the escarpment or conservation authority lands. Just on city road allowances, I'm 19.1%, about 1,245 trees that are ash, and they are all in jeopardy. Staff are now saying that within the next 10 years, they will all be gone. Ash trees are not even sold anymore. This little tiny bug gets in, it burrows under the bark. I tried to explain to people what it does. It burrows under the bark, it tunnels, and it feeds on the can't remember, it's called the cambrian, I think it is, underneath the bark and the main structure of the tree where the sap runs up and down. And what it does is by channeling, it stops that sap from being able to continue, which is the lifeline of the tree. So there are ways of telling if a tree is in jeopardy from visible sort of looking at it, and then there are tests that staff can do. Right now, the last update I've gotten from staff is we are assuming, or we think the bug is as far as Rosedale area right now. So it's not far. It can travel fast, and it lays thousands and thousands and thousands of eggs at a time. So I am absolutely terrified. I have whole streets in my ward that are all ash trees. There's one particular, I have Eastdale, Basswood, Ashwood, Cheltenwood. They're all tree-lined, gorgeous.
Yes.
It's the picture-perfect movie set where you have the treescape complete touching. And I am just absolutely devastated that we could lose it all.
You said they move fast? So does this show.
Sorry.
We're out of time. Thank you, Councillor Maria Pearson. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks
it was
a
a pleasure. Thank you.
That's the Council edition for Wednesday, November the 7th. We return in 2 weeks with Ward 1 Councillor Brian McCaddy. I'm Doug Farraway. Thank you for watching.